If you crave a release from tight hips or lower back pain, Pigeon Pose, also known as Mukha Kapotasana, can be like a breath of fresh air. This beginner or intermediate hip opening pose has a range of benefits for your body and mind. However, proper alignment is absolutely crucial for enjoying all those benefits and preventing injuries to you or your yoga students. So here's everything you need to know about how to do Pigeon Pose, including proper alignment, props you can use, variations, and adjustments. Let's get into it. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Yoga Nomads. I'm Logan Haley, and today we're talking everything Pigeon Pose. This hip opener feels absolutely amazing, especially if you've been doing a lot of sitting or you've just had some really intense glute workouts. It's a great way to stretch those outer hip flexors and just get a lot of relief in the lower body. Sometimes called the king of hip opener asanas, downward facing pigeon is actually a preparation pose for king pigeon or Eka Raja Kapotasana. That pose involves lifting the back leg, grabbing the foot, and arching into a full back bend. Thankfully, downward facing pigeon pose is totally accessible for beginners, and you don't at all have to attempt that back bend until you're ready. The benefits of this pose include lengthening and stretching your hip flexors, improving digestion, externally rotating your psoas muscles, reducing lower back pain, alleviating stress, and targeting the sacral chakra, which is correlated to creativity, sexuality, and pleasure. But perhaps the best thing that Pigeon Pose does is it counteracts all those negative effects of a sedentary lifestyle, which is how so many people are spending their day sitting in chairs. This helps us get moving and loosen up those hips so we can feel a lot more free to enjoy our time. So first we just start off in a basic tabletop position. Make sure your body is square so that your hands are beneath your shoulders and your knees are beneath your hips. On an inhale, slightly walk those hands forward, lift that back left leg, and then bring the left knee behind the left wrist. Shimmy your left foot over under the right hip and then slide that right leg back. This is where you want to make sure there's a straight line between your knee and your hip and that your hips are square facing forward and not angled one way. If this feels like a big external rotation for you, you can stay there, or for a deeper stretch, come down on your forearms and then even down all the way with your forehead resting on the mat. Don't worry, we're going to go in a lot more details as to how you can modify this pose, but this is the quick overview of how you get into it. You breathe and you lay in this position, enjoying that deep external hip rotation, and when you're ready, simply push your hands back up, push into the floor, tug your right toes under and bring the left leg back. If you want, you can come into a plank here or back into a tabletop to repeat on the other side. So inhale that right leg forward, bringing that right knee beneath the right wrist, and then adjust your hips so they're both facing forward. Do the exact same motion here to just check your alignment and kind of squeeze that left glute so your hips are completely square. Again, you can adjust your right foot forward towards your arms or backwards towards your hips, depending what feels good, and then come down on your forearms or down your forehead and feel that stretch deepen. Now let's dig into some more details with a different angle of this pose so you can see how to get a better stretch and feel a lot more relief. So as you pull the knee forward, regardless of which leg you're using, you want to adjust your foot to a place that's comfortable for you. In general, when the foot is put more towards your wrist, that's going to make a deeper external rotation. If you move it back towards your hip, it's going to be a little bit less intense of a stretch. Coming to your forearms, you want to kind of grip the opposite side, the extended leg glute, to make sure that those hips are coming forward and staying straight and aligned. As you exhale downward, you want to keep that back leg slightly activated and feel your body kind of melt into the floor so that added weight of gravity can help really externally rotate that hip and stretch you open. Now, you should definitely not feel any knee pain here, and if you do, that's a sign you need to adjust your foot forwards or backwards until your knee feels like it's in a comfortable place. When you're ready to come out of the pose, you can also transition into a seated twist by just bringing that back leg over the front, bending the knee, and placing your foot on the ground on the outside of the crossed over knee. Then do a light twist and return to a seated position. Now, from the upper or bird's eye view, it's a lot easier to see how the hips can stay aligned or get misaligned. You really want to see the pelvis and those butt cheeks both facing forward and in a straight plane. If you can't slide all the way down, it's no problem to keep the hips slightly lifted, again, as long as both hip bones are facing forward. Moving into the other side, just to give you that view, if you're helping somebody else do this pose, you can easily come behind them and give them a slight adjustment on their lower back as long as you ask them ahead of time. Now, if you'd like to modify this pose or you're feeling any pain and tightness, we definitely want to switch things up with a prop. Simply place a blanket or a bolster beneath the glute that's being rotated and then come down as far as possible and feel that extra lifted support. Fortunately, this cork yoga mat from Cork Tech is cushiony enough that I don't usually need an added support, but you can do that depending on the ground you're working with and the mat you're using. Now, if you want to progress into the more advanced version of Pigeon Pose, you can try out King Pigeon by entering the same way. Except instead of folding downward, you're going to slide back, adjust those hips, and then try bending the back leg upwards and reaching for it with your hands. So this pose is extra fun because you get to target the quad, stimulate digestion and blood flow, and even get a nice back bend in there. But you definitely want to ease into this. As you can see, I'm doing a half bind because I don't quite have that full back bend there yet. This feels so amazing, not only on the externally rotated glute that's bent on the ground, but also on that back quad. A yoga strap can be very useful here if you're reaching for your toes like me, but you can't quite get them. It's also just great practice to play around with. Switching to the other side, you always want to keep things even, and you can try out King Pigeon this way. Now remember not to overarch your back. This is an important part. My glutes, you can see, are very engaged because that's protecting my lower back from any injury. As I move into the half bind, I look upwards, keep my drishti forward, and then continue to arch a little bit in the upper back to try to get that back bend. Now, if you or one of your students does not feel comfortable practicing the downward facing pigeon in its full capacity, they can always try this easy seated position. You simply start seated with your feet flat on the floor and your knees bent. You kind of extend one foot out, bend the ankle over so that the ankle is resting on the opposite knee. Try to get that right angle in and then slowly inch the foot that's on the ground back towards the glutes to intensify the stretch. For the lying down position, you can lay flat on your back and also do pigeon this way. Simply bend up both knees, take the left leg, externally rotate that hip and place that left ankle on the right knee. You can reach behind the knee or hold onto the shin as you pull it forward as much as feels comfortable to get that stretch in. The same thing goes for the opposite side. Again, adjust your grip as needed on the shin or behind the knee, just as long as you're trying to keep everything in right angles and keeping your sacrum and the back of your spine glued to the mat. Thank you so much for pigeoning with me today. I hope your hips are feeling a little more loose and open so you can flow through life. We are the Yoga Nomads, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Namaste.